And we're live recording now. This is the thread, and with me today is a very special guest, a very special man, all the way from Bev Bloom Hills, Michigan. It's Michael Meehan. Or Dr. Michael Meehan.
Soon. Knock on wood.
Man, hey, thanks for coming out here.
No, thanks for having me. I was so impressed by what I heard from previous Thread podcasts.
Oh, the one with Carl. Did you listen to that one?
Yeah, I actually listened to like the first half or so, and I was meaning to listen to the rest of it, but I completely forgot.
That was a lot of fun. And like in the future though, after doing that, I told myself in the future, I kind of want to have everything, like any other like future guests, I kind of want to have here or like in Northville, just because it was kind of a pain to lug like all this stuff like over to his house and then plug it in. So I thank you for coming out here. I know it's probably a drive for you.
Beautiful neighborhood.
Yeah,
actually,
yeah.
The city was pretty clean. I haven't been out here in quite a while.
Well, did you know people from Northville? You knew Kevin.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I do. It's slipping my mind. I know my high school Latin teacher was from Novi, but yeah, I guess the Mantes I did know.
Yeah, the Mantes. Oh yeah, Kevin and Chris. Chris went to. He graduated and then he went to he graduated from Albion, which is where my brother went, and then he went to law school in Minnesota. He was a Gopher.
Wow.
I love the Gophers. I love that they just try hard, but we still beat them in football. Although there was that one year they came close.
It's a fierce rivalry.
It's the Jug. The Jug is a great rivalry trophy because we win it every year. But I touched the Jug. Back when I worked for the football team, they had it on display for Minnesota week, and I just went up.
Does that mean you're never going to win it yourself now?
Did I just place a curse on them? Oh, man. Well, Dr. Meehan.
Didn't you try out for Michigan football?
Yeah, I did.
How did that go?
Yeah. It was a really good experience. The first time I tried out was under Coach Rodriguez, and it was really good. They had us like actually doing like football drills, competing against each other. I was the only wide receiver that tried out. There's like about 25, 30 of us, and I went over with the wide receivers coach. I forget his name, but he's been with Rich Rod like for a while, since West Virginia. He was with him at Arizona, and he had me catching balls out of the Jug machine. And I've never used a Jug machine before. So the first football that came through, it came in hot. And it like bounced like right off my hands. And I was like, holy shit, that came in really fast. And then he had me do a ton of those in different positions. Then we just basically did one-on-ones. And I did okay, but I didn't make it. That was the same tryout that Mike Kwiatkowski was at, that tryout, who ended up starting in 2014. He was a starting tight end. And then Steve Wilson, who's actually a doctor now himself, he made the team from that tryout. But everybody talks about like Jordan Kovacs is the guy. He was like a year or 2 years before that. Famous all Big Ten safety.
Wow, so you were right in the thick of things.
I was. I was a little bit, and then I tried out under Hoke, and I thought I did really well, and I was actually kind of surprised I didn't make it because I honestly felt like I was the most athletic person on the field. But you tried out for you were on the Bloomfield Hills Lazar football team that played the Devin Gardner led Inkster team.
I was not quite on the team. I was a tennis and golf player myself. I'm looking. Is it Steve Wilson? Did he play cornerback?
He did, yeah.
Okay, this guy. That's funny.
He's from Lakeland or White Lake.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
I think I might have played this guy in flag football, but I know he was in one of my summer classes. Yeah.
He's a good guy. Surprisingly, he was very athletic because he was like about my size, but he was strong and actually like very like pretty quick, pretty fast. But it's when you're a walk on it's tough to see the field at that level. Like, yeah, sure, like Kovacs got a very like that's more of like the exception, not the rule, so to speak. But yeah, Kovacs ended up playing in the NFL for a couple years under the Miami Dolphins.
That's just almost like the NFL.
Yeah. Well, because the AFC East is so competitive that.
Yeah, that's funny. So this is kind of in the news recently. What the Dolphins was if. So the Patriots just won the Super Bowl, obviously.
Yes.
Julian Edelman was the MVP.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of discussion about whether he is a Hall of Famer or not.
Yeah.
And it's kind of a circular topic talking about the Hall of Fame because, like, it's not a meritocracy. It's not the Hall of Greatness. It really is the Hall of Fame.
Mm-hmm.
And would Julian Edelman be in the Hall of Fame discussion if he played for the Dolphins?
You mean like with the same numbers that he has right now?
Just if he played for the Dolphins his whole career.
From when Julian Edelman was drafted, which was 10 years ago. Yeah, 10 years ago. No, I don't think so because the Dolphins have not been good in that entire 10-year stretch.
Mm-hmm.
They haven't even made. I think they've only made the playoffs one time in that 10-year stretch. Which that's what I was kind of looking up right now. Edelman.
It's tough typing with one hand.
I know. Yeah. So,
good thing I already had some NFL tabs open.
Yeah. I know. Next time we'll make it more professional.
It is. The sound quality is really good.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm surprised at how it does sound good, especially like listening back to it. I'm always surprised, like, oh yeah, this sounds legit. I got Edelman's numbers though. Wait, are you kidding me? So a Hall of Fame wide receiver. So you're telling me Edelman's a Hall of Fame wide receiver with only 5,300 yards receiving for his career.
That's more than Lynn Swan.
Wait, what? Really?
Yeah, Lynn Swan. I have to pull it up right now, but he only had roughly 5,000 receiving yards, and that's like 2 seasons for Antonio Brown, basically.
Yeah.
But that's a different era, like Julian Edelman is playing now.
Jeez.
So, yeah, Julian Edelman. And over the past 3 seasons, I'll have to pull this up. Someone was...
Like 2018, he was 850 yards. 2017, he was injured, did not play. 2016, 1106, 1,106 yards. That was his best year. He's only had 2 1,000-yard seasons in his almost 10-year career.
And
Wow.
when we were growing up, the 1,000-yard season was
Yeah.
kind of the standard for like a very good season. But
Yeah.
now,
Yeah.
1,000 yards in 16, that's 83 yards a game. So I mean, it's not 100 yards a game.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what they would say about running backs too. Like, oh, if you get 1,000 yards rushing in a season, oh, that's like pretty good. Which I guess maybe today is still a good like standard because teams don't rush the ball as much as they used to.
Right.
I'd have to see the numbers, but
And also, rushing the ball is a product of game script often. Like, you see this all the time. Like, even former NFL players, an NFL commentator saying, or they'll pull up a stat that'll say, like, the Ravens are 6-1 when they rush for over 100 yards.
oh yeah,
And it's like, well, in those games where they're down 28-7 because Flacco threw a pick six, are they going to rush the ball to come back? Taking that time off the clock is going to hurt their chances of winning. So it's kind of like, that's kind of like saying, I don't know, that's saying like the cause and effect is reversed in that example. Like the Ravens are 6-1 when they rush for 100 plus yards. It's, well, when the Ravens are winning games, then they rush for 100 yards, basically.
I see what you're saying. That's fun. I never thought about that.
Like you'll see it in so many NFL broadcasts. They'll pull up stats like that, or even the Lions.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
the
yeah.
Lions haven't rushed well, so whenever Kerryon Johnson will have 100-yard rushing games, they'll talk about it. And obviously, this isn't always like it's not 100% like black and white, but when a team is losing, they're not able to run the ball, and so much of running the ball is a product of both game script and offensive line, which brings us to an interesting topic, which is drafting running backs.
You were talking about this before.
Yeah, it's funny we're getting to everything I wanted to talk about right away.
Yes.
So
No, I like this.
But yeah, so I guess now that we only have 1 year of data, but basically the Giants drafted second, the Jets drafted third. The Giants selected generational running back Saquon Barkley as seconds. And the New York Jets drafted struggling rookie quarterback Sam Darnold at 3. And the question arises now, in hindsight, was it correct to draft a running back at 2 overall when you have a 37-year-old going to be 38 Eli Manning, who hasn't been good in 5 years, if he ever was good, which is debatable. But so what do you think about that? Like, if you had, like, even though we see Saquon Barkley, he's a tier 1 running back.
Yeah.
And Sam Darnold, I believe he was, I'll have to pull up I think I have the quarterback stats here. So in DVOA, Sam Darnold was 30th, but he's 22 years old.
Yeah.
He was the youngest quarterback in the NFL. So,
and he did whip the Lions. First game. Jeez.
Yeah. So Sam Darnold, he's 21.
21.
I thought he was 22.
Wow.
He's 21 years old.
So he's got to be one of the youngest ever to start an NFL game at quarterback. Definitely.
You could be right, because
yeah.
he turns his birthday is in June, so I guess he would have just turned 21.
Wow.
Which is definitely young.
Jeez. So the question is it in the Giants situation, would you rather have the stud running back or the quarterback who might be a stud? He's a little young, but let's see what we can get, because Eli Manning is very old. He only had that one great season where he threw for like 5,000 yards, and then he won 2 Super Bowls, but he hasn't really been the same since. I would, my cousin told me this. So my cousin worked for the Lions in their scouting department. I'm going to have to get him on the show, actually, one of these days. And he told me this. He said, Chris, in football, like if I was starting a team in like with my first draft pick, like I'm always going after the trigger man, the guy who throws the football, because that's the guy who's gonna win you games. That's the guy who's gonna get you into playoffs, gonna get you to Super Bowls, and I mean, just look at the past this millennium, like Tom Brady, like Kurt Warner, like Ben Roethlisberger.
Mhm.
I chuckle a little bit at that one, but Aaron Rodgers. I mean, you're telling like teams like the 2000 Baltimore Ravens, like that just. I mean, I love defense win championships. I love that philosophy, but I, I still think a quarterback's way more important. So maybe I would have drafted Sam Darnold
Mhm.
if I were the Giants.
Yeah, that brings up kind of a really interesting point. We kind of keep jumping to topics, but I sort of think I heard someone bring this up. So this isn't my idea originally, but I agree with it that when Bill Belichick writes his biography or what autobiography after he retires in, I don't know, 5 years or whatever,
Yeah.
is he going to say how bad the coaching in the NFL is? And then the follow-up point to that is and how poorly these NFL teams are run because their cronyism is rampant. The teams are all run by trust fund sons of billionaires, oftentimes who are just in it to make money. So this is kind of jumping to another point. So the Clippers were always the laughing stock of the NBA,
Yeah.
run under Donald Sterling.
Yeah. Yeah.
They were always the worst. They were one of the most profitable teams because Donald Sterling, so with revenue sharing and also
TV deal.
TV and also
Yeah.
with they shared a stadium with the Lakers, so the Lakers paid for the
Oh.
stadium and the Clippers. So the Clippers
Okay.
were one of the maybe the most profitable team by a significant margin. I was hearing
Wow.
because and every time a player would come up for a contract extension, they would just trade him or let him sign somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
So they kept costs super low, and with revenue sharing and TV, they were one of the most profitable teams. So to fans, obviously, the most important thing is winning.
Yeah.
But to the owners, it's obviously making money.
Yeah.
So a combination of like there are teams who are just in it to make money, revenue sharing, whatever. They're fine being the Washington Generals to the Harlem Globetrotters, and the league was obviously fine with that. Lakers, Celtics, as long as they're good, there's going to be enough revenue sharing to go around and for everyone to make money. And the reason I brought this up is because you brought up in the early 2000s, run the football,
Yeah.
establish the run defense. And I was just
Yeah.
thinking, what if the standard of play and coaching was just so low that like this sort of play style to just like make sure every like I feel like running the ball and playing defense, you can sort of make sure every game is like a low scoring close game. And it's like a surefire way to go 9-7. Like, like the Seahawks goal, like they're saying everyone else is passing the ball, but really we're running it.
Yeah.
And it's a very surefire way to go 9-7 and lose in the wild card rounds. Or maybe you'll get lucky and you'll draw the Bungles or the Texans and you'll win the wild card round and lose by 20
Yeah.
in the divisional round.
Yeah. Yeah.
But,
That is that's like the Lions formula. Let's go 8-8, 9-7, squeak in the playoffs, and then
Right.
lose to like the Packers.
I have the mock NFL draft open, and I was wondering why, and I think it's because I was thinking about how much draft position the Dolphins lost by winning that miracle game against New England.
Oh,
Because it
yeah,
didn't
yeah,
matter
yeah.
to New England because they ended up winning the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so the Dolphins ended up 7-9,
Wow.
and they're drafting 13th overall,
Ugh.
even though they were a sorry team. And Packers were 6-9-1. Panthers 7-9, Falcons 7-9. Let's see the draft order. So the Dolphins draft 13th. So it definitely cost them at least pick 12 versus pick 13.
Yeah.
So it cost him at least one position. So I guess not that bad. But anyways,
But I know what you're saying. In other years, that one win, like, kills, like, can move you like
right.
three spots, four spots.
Yeah, so the Lions beating the Packers. So that's sort of like
Yeah.
it's not only
Yeah.
taking a pick away from us, it's giving it to the Packers. And that's what the Lions do every year. And it sort of started out this year with that loss to the Jets. We've been talking so much about the Jets.
Yeah.
Was it 48-17, I believe? And this was the first time I was legitimately excited about Lions hire. Like, I was not excited about Caldwell, even though he arguably overachieved and outperformed expectations. He is the highest winning percentage coach in Lions history.
Yeah.
Even though that's not saying much. He had 3 winning seasons.
2 playoff appearances.
Right. So he was, I mean, he was successful. But this was the first time I was excited about a hire. Like, wow, because like there was this backstory on Matt Patricia. Like, it wasn't just he was a part of the Patriots organization, because so many of their coaching tree have like failed to excel as head coaches.
Yeah.
But he was part of the Patriots coaching tree, and there was this background story that he was such a hard worker. Like, he was like having all these sleepless nights researching opponents.
Lunch pail
scouting.
attitude.
Yeah, exactly. Such a hard worker, like smart
Yeah.
mid-game adjustments. And then we lost 48-17 to the Jets, who ended up being one of the most sorry teams. And I have this open here. They scored 333 points this season. So we were about 1/6 of their points. 1/7.
When you put it that way, that hurts.
And it was like our season was in the toilet starting week 1. Like, you just knew, like, there's no such thing as a playoff team or Super Bowl contender that loses by 30 to the Jets. It doesn't at home. It doesn't exist. So it just sort of knew, like, we were going nowhere, and what we were going to do is have a losing first half of the season and win a few games in the second half, just enough to ruin our draft position to get someone like that dominant edge rusher, which we need, or so many positions on defense, really.
You think like corner as well?
to say the least.
Yeah.
Yeah, Tease, Tabor, and was it
Slay? Slay is good.
Slay is good, but
Tease and the other corner
Nevin Lawson?
Nevin Lawson. Yeah.
Both struggled mightily, to say the least. Tease runs like a 4.8 40. I mean,
well, I don't have a problem if you're going to be a slow corner. Like, I think like Richard Sherman only ran, I'd have to check this on his Wikipedia page, but I believe he only ran a like 4.6 40, which, I mean, don't get me wrong, 4.6 is like faster than I can run, but you know, when you're talking about like fast wide receivers, fast corners, they're running in the 4.4s. And okay, so he ran a 4.56. Okay, that's still pretty good. But if you're gonna be a slow corner, you better have some size to you. Like Richard Sherman, 6'3". I don't have a problem with him being slow, because I feel like he would make up for it in his length. Like Brandon Browner, same thing, like big corner. Jalen Ramsey, like bigger-ish corner.
And they can play zone, and they can tackle too.
Yeah, that's the other thing, is they can stick, as one of my coaches in high school said, stick their nose in there and make the hit. Whereas like a guy like Tease is like, why do we drafted him because we drafted Jared Davis and he needed a buddy for the training camp? Like,
well, I don't know. I'm seeing here he ran a 4.77 at his pro day.
God.
So he ran a 4.62 at the combine, which is the second slowest of all cornerbacks. and then he ran a 4.77 at his pro day. So
It's usually reversed. I feel like usually guys run faster at their pro day.
right,
Wow.
and that reminds me of how Joik Bell, God bless him, great story.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
you know, he wasn't like he wasn't exactly a speedster.
No. No. But you know what? Joik, I did like Joik was like that, and I'm sorry to use like a very cliche term, but a change of pace back, where and he can pass block, so I kind of liked him, and he had some hands. He could catch the ball a little bit.
So
But you're right, he was, yeah.
my go-to for comparison for a slow player. So Martellus Bennett ran a 4.68. He's 6'6", 275. And
tight end.
Tease ran a 4.62, then a 4.77. So you're saying a cornerback who's 6'2", 200 compared to a tight end who's 6'6", 275, and not. I mean,
Yeah.
the point. He's just who I randomly picked. I know who's like a big kind of trotting, plodding tight end.
Jeez.
But yeah, he's really struggled, and so our defense definitely has needs at cornerback, linebacker, as well as edge rusher.
Yeah. Who else is? I mean, would you say something like offensive line even, or how do you feel about the offensive line?
I mean, we invested so much into it. I think we just you have to coach them up, I guess.
Yeah.
I mean, we were good at one point, but I guess this is what the old advanced stats are for. So let's see.
I think the big problem is what's his name? Our left tackle, Packers.
TJ Lang.
TJ Lang, he's been hurt and he has some injury issues, which I know hurts because I don't know who starts in his place. What's his name? Decker is, first round draft pick. I don't think he's been bad. Travis Swanson, another high draft pick. Glasgow's the old Michigan guy that I like. And then who? Rick Wagner. I don't know if he's still on the team anymore though. And then Larry Warford, who we gave up, and then he went to the Saints, and then all these players that we give up, they go on to have
Kyle Van Noy, Eric Ebron.
Eric Ebron. I knew that was going to happen too with Ebron.
And was it Bruce Irvin, the Seattle defensive ends, who was on the 0-16 2008 Lions? There's a defensive end for Seattle. Cliff Averill, yeah. Similar names.
Yeah, like Cliff Averill.
But yeah, everyone succeeds. And although, I'm not as salty because Ebron, Jack Doyle got hurt and he got a lot of touchdowns, but he had a lot of drops too. Like he wasn't that great. Really? It was kind of like a lot of opportunity. And then Kyle Van Noy, he's like a slow 40-time weak side linebacker. Like I'm not that depressed about parting ways with him. The ones that definitely hurt, I mean, that you just can't recover from is Ebron over Donald. Like those are things like losing these guys in free agency isn't a big. Even losing Sue has not been that good since we let him go. Yeah. So that's not that big a deal. And you see why, like the Dolphins signed him to this huge contract, and I don't think their defense was even that good with him.
No.
But I pulled this up. So our offensive line was 19th in adjusted line yards. So that's like yards the offensive line accounts for versus the running back. And then in pass protection, Detroit was 12th. So they have us as 12th in pass protection. So 19th, 12th. That's an an average.
Yeah.
And you could argue that pass protection is more important, or at least it should be if you have kind of forward-thinking coaching. First is New England, second Colts, third Saints, fourth Pittsburgh, fifth Kansas City, sixth Rams.
Wow. So kind of a correlation there between high-powered offense and pass blocking ability. What was I going to say? I wanted to ask you about what did I want to ask you about? As far as that run blocking stat that you had said, how much, so does that take into account, like, if your running back is like Ezekiel Elliott versus if it's like, like Joe Schmo? Like,
Yeah, so there's an adjusted line yards and an RB yards. I can just so RB yards is yards per carry by the team's running back, so that's like just the regular stat. And then where's the explanation? A team with high-ranking adjusted line yards but a low ranking in open field yards is heavily reliant on the offensive line to make the running game work. A team with a low rank in adjusted line yards but a high rank in open field yards is heavily dependent on its running back breaking long runs to make the running game work. So I guess what that's saying is that it says an important clarification is it is important to understand that these ratings only somewhat separate offensive line from running backs, and a team with a very good running back will appear higher no matter how their line is, and a team with a great line will appear lower if the running back is terrible. So it's basically that's just covering their behind, saying this isn't absolute, and like even advanced stats, like they have to be correlated with the game. So so we gave adjusted line yards, but then we have to look at open field yards. So we're 19th in adjusted line yards. Oh, why don't I link this to you? I'm gonna post it on Thread so you can open the link if you have. Do you have WhatsApp web on?
No, just on my phone. Would it work on the phone as well?
How can I send it over? Oh,
email. Okay. No, we're too advanced for email now. Can't do that.
I'll just send it to you on Freedom Thread.
Freedom Thread is the go-to thread chat.
So yeah, I mean that's a simple enough URL. You could just jam that in, if you want. So that's just what I'm looking at. So it doesn't. I'm reading this. I'm not producing it. I just reference these things because again, I think it's good to have some like objective measures because there's so much bias as we see, especially in football. Everyone's so opinionated. So we were 19th in adjusted line yards. Now let's look at the open field yards or just the rank. And so the Lions were 23rd in open field rank. So according to their own statement, that means the offensive line was slightly better performing than the running backs.
Okay.
Because the running backs weren't breaking open. And when you have LeGarrette Blount, you can't expect anything less.
Well, I was gonna ask you, do you like Kerryon Johnson like going forward for the Lions?
I think he's really good. I don't know if it was worth like trading up because those picks, like teams like the Steelers and Patriots, they just nail those third and fourth round picks. So trading up for him, I don't know, but I think he's a good runner. I like his style. I'm not an expert on running back technique, but I always like the guys who it looks like they get those extra 2 yards. Second and 6 instead of second and 8.
It seemed like because he did get injured. I forget what the injury was, and I don't know if it. I don't know if it's going to affect him, like upcoming this season, because that always scares me if a running back gets like an injury bug, and then you take somebody and you turn from like Jamal Charles into like Chris Johnson in the later half of his career.
All of whom were rivals with Adrian Peterson at one point, and he just isn't it amazing that Peterson was like like just for 10 years he was just that stud running back. And this kind of brings us back to our point about drafting running backs versus quarterbacks.
Right.
Tom
yeah.
Brady is 41. He graduated from Michigan when 99 2000,
Yeah.
whereas like Adrian Peterson, who is in the 2007 draft, is ancient now, and that's only 11 years. So the quarterback has such like twice as long a shelf life, even
Yeah.
compared to the greatest, most durable running back. So that's another thing. So Sam Darnold is 21 in 15 years. Like he's probably still gonna, at worst, a journeyman, and at best a franchise quarterback. Whereas Saquon in 15 years, I mean, he's going to take a lot of hits, and even if, say, he is the greatest running back of all time and like outperforms like an Adrian Peterson of this generation, he's just going to be like running back depth in the same amount of time. So that's kind of the thought behind it. And they have Eli Manning, who's awful.
Yeah.
But anyway, so Kerryon was 13th in PFF. So that's excellent, right, for a rookie. 13th in running backs for PFF.
Is that 13th among like every single running back?
Every single running back.
Okay.
So they have it as good, but objectively it's number 13.
Okay.
And so PFF, I don't know a ton about the ranking system, but basically they look at every single play, and I believe, they look at every single play. I'm not sure their rating system, but it's kind of good to match the PFF ranking with like DVOA, and kind of match these because DVOA looks at every play, but it also adjusts for defense. So that's but obviously none of these stats are absolute. But so we sort of see that Kerryon was the 13th best running back according to PFF. The Lions were 19th in adjusted line yards. So I think the running game is actually in a decent spot.
Just not when we hand LeGarrette Blount the ball.
No, that was tough to watch.
Do you think sometimes, not to get on a slight tangent, do you think that sometimes that there's too much of this like Patriot way that like, oh, we want to bring in our guys that we coached, like LeGarrette Blount? And
I definitely do. I think that's one of the problems is, you see like Adam Gase brings in, I forgot the guy's name. He's so bad we don't know his name, and he's been an NFL coordinator for like 6 years. Let's see, Jets.
Adam Gase was the Dolphins head coach?
Dowell Loggains is his name. DOWELLLOGGAINS.
And he was their O coordinator?
He was. Yep. He was the Dolphins offensive coordinator. Would you want to hire the Dolphins offensive coordinator?
No.
Yeah.
No.
And so this guy is. So let me read you a bit of Dowell Loggains' resume. He was the Dolphins offensive coordinator 2018, Bears from 2016 to 2017. Remember the Bears with John Fox?
Yeah.
Would you want their offensive coordinator as your offensive coordinator?
Bears under John Fox were pretty bad. Yeah. I wouldn't want to hire him.
And then he was the Titans coach from 2012 to 2013, the Titans offensive coordinator from 2012 to 2013. I'm going to go out on a limb and say they were not a good offense.
Yeah.
And if you look at the rankings, that sort of backs that up. Let's see. So, the Bears under Loggains were dead last among 32 play callers ranked by ESPN. The offense averaged 16.5 points per game, which was 29th in the league. So that was his Bears tenure. And the Dolphins, I'm sure it was similar. So the original point was like bringing in your guys. I think that the sort of cronyism that's rampant in the NFL definitely hurts like creativity and also new opportunity. So So this guy, this example, Dowell Loggains, is going to be the Jets offensive coordinator. They have Sam Darnold, who's 21, like so much potential. They're bringing in this offensive coordinator who is objectively awful.
Yeah.
And why? Because he's friends with Adam Gase. Why was Adam Gase hired? I mean, it's sort of that cronyism with the owners. The Jets. He was on the Dolphins. Now he's going to be on the Jets. Like, they were in the same they were in the same division. Who knows? But the hire, I mean, you sort of see why it's so tough. They complain about no minority hires being made. It's just because, like, once you're in the club, you're in the club. Like, Marvin Lewis was there for 13 years.
Yeah.
And there's no sort of fresh ideas, no new play callers. Like, there's two Grudens who are head coaches. Like, and similarly, I wanted to bring this up. Sean McVay, this new hot young hire, right?
Yeah.
30 years old, head coach, must have been new blood. And he was so successful. The Rams, they went to a Super Bowl. They won 24 games in the last 2 years. In the last 4 with Jeff Fisher, they won 24 total. So he's literally twice as good as Jeff Fisher. But he got the job because of cronyism.
Because his dad.
You're right. His grandfather and the Gruden's
his
dad. It's kind of a long story, but his Sean McVay's grandfather and the Gruden's father were buddies. And so Sean McVay was the youngest offensive coordinator hired by the Redskins by Jay Gruden. So he was like 27 when he was an NFL offensive coordinator. And if I had to give you one guess as to who led the Rams hired a personnel search for their new head coach. Care to guess if there was anyone on that firm that might have been an NFL coach and might have been a broadcaster?
Okay. Well, if you put it like that, I would say John Gruden.
You're right.
Yeah.
And so the Rams hire Sean McVay. So even like the new blood, it's like there's so much nepotism and cronyism.
Yeah.
And here this Dowell Gaines, I mean, how bad is that? The team averaged 2 years ago 16.5 points per game and were 29th in the league. And then he goes to the Dolphins, and the Dolphins' offense was awful.
That year too with the Titans, 2013, they went 7-9, and their league rank in offense in yards was 22nd, and points forced was 19th. So, not very good.
And let's see, last year, or the Dolphins in 2018 in offensive DVA were 26th. The year before, 27th. So they're getting objectively a bottom 5 offensive coordinator in the Jets in a crucial time for their 21-year-old quarterback.
Yeah.
Because of this cronyism.
Yeah.
So I think it's definitely a huge problem, and teams are so quick to fire coaches, right? They're so easy to fire coaches, but then who do they hire? These other coaches who were fired.
Yeah.
There's just so much cronyism. Like, you have to think like there has to be like someone who has a sort of creative minds. That's why I don't like the hire of Darrell Bevell. I don't hate it. I just sort of dislike it because he's been around for 7 years. There's probably a ton of film on him. I know
Where Darrell Bevell got hired where?
Lions offensive coordinator for next year.
Oh, I didn't even. How did I miss that? Damn.
And so the Seahawks with Bevell have a few years in a row of being a top. 1 year they were top 1 in offensive DVOA, and a couple other years they were top 5. But then a couple other years they were in the high teens, and those are more recent. So I sort of think like there's a lot of film out on his system. Even in offense, like if you were to bring in a playbook from 10 years ago now, don't you think it would be somewhat dated?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like they were saying the Rams offense the Rams offense was dated with Jeff Fisher. Todd Gurley said it was like a high school playbook. Jeff Fisher was once the Sean McVay of the NFL. He was a 36-year-old head coach for the Oilers. And
he was 1 yard short.
1 yard short. So
Yeah.
in 5 years with the Titans, there were 4 years where he had 11 or more wins. After 3 8-8 seasons, then he had a 5-year golden stretch where they had 11, 12, or 13 wins in 4 of 5 seasons. So he was once the Sean McVay, and then his offense got stale. So you sort of see with the Patriots, like they're always one step ahead. They're always changing and innovating.
Yeah.
And so I wonder, like, if this Darrell Bevel is the right. He could be good, but it's sort of like, man, I sort of wish it was some offensive coordinator who was their first year, even though that didn't work with, what's his name, Joe Lombardi.
Yeah.
So basically, I'm going to complain no matter what because I'm a Lions fan.
Darrell Bevel too. Like he has a lot of, and in Seattle, Russell Wilson is just, I think, just miles ahead of Stafford. So I'm sure that like he's going to come over here and he's not going to have a Russell Wilson that can, spin around, make a play with his legs, get like 5 yards in a cloud of dust, or be able to scramble to his right and make a pass downfield. And it'll be an adjustment, I think, for him.
That is a great point. So, kind of going back to our, you got to run the ball.
Yeah.
The Seahawks, they got to run the ball, and they're 9-17 with Russell Wilson. So it's like, this team, like, it's almost as simple as if you have that top 5, top 8 at worst quarterback, like how are you kind of just an above average decent team? It's because they're just running the ball, kind of making sure every game is a 1-score game, and hoping Russell Wilson bails them out in the 4th. But it's like, why not just have him throw the ball the whole game and just win by 10 points instead,
Yeah. The Seahawks, I don't know who they've been they haven't been drafting like any like high with their high picks, like any skill positions really. It's mostly like defense.
Yeah, they
like,
took Rashad Penny in the first rounds.
That's a
running back, yeah.
Oh, really? Oh,
and,
okay.
And
I didn't realize that.
Well, that's exactly the point. Is he didn't start for them all year?
Oh, really?
So
it was Chris Carson and CJ Procise, who's a former wide receiver.
And then Mike something also got Mike Davis.
Mike Davis.
I know because I added him, then dropped him in fantasy 1 week.
Oh my god! Remember when they had when Lynch got hurt, they brought in Thomas Rolls for a few games, and he killed it.
Yep.
My coworker actually is a Seahawks fan, so he's very. I don't like listening to his garbage at work. But anyway,
that's so true. So one of the reasons they liked the Bevel hire was he said he likes to move the pocket around, get the quarterback rolling, get some easy throws, which, that's so important. We've kind of learned that, like, every quarterback is a system quarterback, right? Like, if the quarterbacks who have receivers getting schemed open, getting crossing routes that go over 15.
Pick routes.
Yeah, exactly. Pick routes, those running back pick routes that go for 20. Like, those are the quarterbacks who are excelling. And, like, some are better and more accurate than others. But, like they say, like, oh, Tom Brady is a glorified system quarterback. It's like, kind of every quarterback is a system quarterback is what we're learning. And it's so important to have that coach that, is like opening things up and making easy throws. And that's not what the Lions had. But, yeah, definitely Russell Wilson is, a more talented passer than Stafford.
Yeah.
But Stafford is good. Like,
yeah,
it's just, if you look at the value, like how good he is divided by his cost to the team, is not that high.
Yeah. 'Cause you were showing me, didn't you send me something about like you compared like Dak Prescott to Matt Stafford and like the salary, and you were saying like, well, look at Dak getting paid on a rookie contract. I think, right? He's still on a rookie contract or something.
Yeah, he was this year. So this is a great topic, and I'm glad we got to this. So So everyone says that, right? So Jared Goff, rookie contract. Who's the other one? Mahomes, rookie contract.
Yeah. Darnold.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, but specifically these teams who are succeeding really well with QBs on a rookie deal, especially Goff and Mahomes, that's the formula to win in the NFL. And Stafford makes $27 million a year, and he's a good quarterback. He's not a great quarterback.
No, yeah.
The problem with I hear a lot of Lions fans and sort of like Lions haters who are in the area sort of criticize that, but The issue is the Lions missed our opportunity just because of the rule change. So Stafford was making $20 million a year when he was 21 years old as the Lions quarterback, like right away.
Yeah.
They changed the rule the next year, so the Colts got Andrew Luck for $500,000 a year, and Russell Wilson to the Seahawks for $500,000 a year when the Lions were already paying Stafford $20 million a year. So he started out, or it might have been 15, but still he was getting paid full, and then the rule changed the next year. So Lions got denied that opportunity by the NFL, and ever since we've been paying him fully. And the other thing is there's no precedent for a team when the quarterback leaves his rookie deal, just letting him walk. No team has done it yet. No team has let a quarterback leaving his rookie deal walk at 20, 24, 25 years old in his prime. I don't think the Rams are going to do it with Jared Goff. So Bortles makes $20 million a year. Winston, $20 million a year. Mariota, $20 million a year. These quarterbacks are not as good as Matthew Stafford. And even that quality of quarterback, they were getting paid. So it's sort of like the criticism, like, in a perfect world, Lions would have a strong rookie quarterback on a rookie deal, rebuilding from there and making a push. But there's no precedent for a team, at least that I'm aware of, letting a 24 or 25-year-old QB walk and then drafting a new rookie QB, because, that would be a huge risk, and also such an I don't think it exists. So at the same time, yes, I understand the criticism, but also Stafford had a gun to the Lions' head. Either we were going to pay him or not.
Mm-hmm. Looking back at that, I remember on 97 Won the Ticket, they were looking at all the quarterbacks taken in that draft of Stafford, which I'm actually looking up right now. Who else? What other quarterbacks were in this draft? And they were kind of like comparing, like, I don't know how good Stafford's going to be compared to, like, Josh Freeman or, remember that name?
Wow.
Or, like, what other quarterback was in this draft? Not that freaking many. Okay, hang on.
So I find it. Dak Prescott makes $680,000 this year, because he's on a rookie deal, but he was like a third or fourth round pick.
Mm-hmm. So would you rather have? Those are some names. Would you rather have Josh Freeman, Mark Sanchez, Pat White, Stephen McGee, Rhett Bomer, Nate Davis, Tom Branson, Mike Teal? Like, I'd rather have Stafford out of all these quarterbacks, except for Curtis Painter, who was also drafted that year. But Brian Hoyer was also that year, and Chase Daniel. Wow,
man, Brian Hoyer looks older.
Yeah, he does. I literally thought Hoyer was like John L. era. I mean, I guess he kind of was, but I thought he was a lot older than that. Wow.
How is he?
I'd rather have Stafford, to be honest with you.
He's 33. Yeah.
I would rather have Stafford than all those guys. Even Sanchez, who, made 2 AFC title games and has huge hands. I remember that.
Dated someone famous.
Yeah. Oh, right. Yeah, that too. But he had the butt fumble, so I can't, But, why are we paying Stafford this much?
It's he had a gun to our head, and teams haven't sort of figured out. We'll see if a team does it, but again, it was our options were either we pay him how much he wants us to pay him, or he goes to another team, because another team would have paid him $27 million, like Kirk Cousins makes $28 million a year, and and we would have had to draft a quarterback that year. And I don't know if the team saw someone they wanted to, but I don't think I doubt the team ever considered not. It wasn't even a question. So Stafford had all the leverage, and we had to pay him what he wanted, basically, which is full price.
Jeez. Um, I think. Do you think the Lions are a little um, loyal, like too loyal of an organization? Like they were
Yes.
like, oh, like Matt Stafford, like you're so much better than Harrington. You're so much better than Kitna, and we want you to be our franchise guy. And yes, we'll do anything for you. Kind of like that.
I believe the Lions are loyal to mediocrity.
Yeah.
I believe that they are loyal to a fault, as we saw with Jim Schwartz, 5th year.
Yeah.
So, let's see, oh, here we go.
Another guy who went on to success from the Lions.
Yep. Yeah. Exactly. So, Jim Schwartz in his 4th season went 4-12. We gave him a 5th season. He went 7-9. Then fired him. So why was he given that 5th season after 4-12? Then Caldwell. I think it was Caldwell won. So this isn't that good an example.
And the players like Caldwell.
Right. Exactly. And also, so the Lions promoted Martin Mayhew.
Oh, you love this.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. So like if you explain this to someone who's like not even a fan of football, that a team went 0-16. I mean, it's just crazy.
You go 0-16, and then you promote the assistant to the GM to the GM position, but he was on like I know you always say this on the thread, like he was in the same room as them.
Right.
Like,
so yeah, in the 2008 Detroit Lions season, just confirming this to make sure I'm not spreading.
You're not doctoring.
Yes. Yeah. Exactly.
Even though you're a doctor.
Senior vice president. So the 2008 Lions season, where the Lions went 0-16. The head coach Rod Marinelli, executive vice president / interim CEO Tom Luan, senior vice president / general Martin Mayhew. So he was senior vice president / GM. Wait, that must have, because I don't see Matt Millen on here.
Matty Millen.
Okay, so he was fired week 4.
Who, Matt Millen?
Yeah.
Really? Wow.
Okay, I didn't seem to remember that. So actually he was heading the ship for 2/3 of the 0-16 season. And even though they were Matt Millen's players, but still senior vice. So he got an internal promotion. Let me check then 2007 then. Make sure he was on the staff there.
Matt Millen has a Football Life documentary on NFL Network. What the hell?
Yeah, because wasn't he really good for Penn State?
In fairness, I think he was a really good football player, and he did just have like heart surgery.
Okay, so I can't confirm that. I don't know what his position was the year before, but he was there from week 4 onward. But then again, I don't know what personnel decisions. But I remember from that season, I still believe to this day, if John Kitna starts every game, like we would have won 2 games. But they benched him for some reason.
For Orlovsky, right?
Yeah, like why I don't know, but
I don't know either. What's this?
The foundation started by Sandusky. Matt, what's your reaction to the news
did you ever
conference
hear
being
about,
canceled?
See this?
Yeah, because he went to Penn State.
Yeah, he started crying on air.
It's above his head. That's the first thing. And the fact that the university made the decision and no, it wasn't going to be about football.
He certainly is.
All right, I'm not going to
do the investigation.
Where he cries. Or breaks down right here.
It's pretty disturbing.
It is. It's a program. It's like family for you, Matt. And, I think we all understand that.
Yeah, it makes...
Anyway,
So speaking of, we were a bit earlier. I have it pulled up.
Yes.
We were talking about Dak Prescott versus Stafford.
Yes.
So I do think Stafford is better, but the sort of price divided by value. So Prescott was 26th in QB DVOA. Stafford,
Wow.
where do we have him?
With a better offensive line, probably.
Yeah, they were injured throughout the year. Where is he? Stafford was 21st.
Okay.
So not too big a difference.
Yeah.
Nick Mullins, 18th. And Nick Mullins is positive. So Stafford is the first of the negative 0.6. So whereas then above him, Nick Mullins at 18th. I guess I don't fully understand the stat that well, but simple enough is just ranking. So Mullins was 18th, and he makes $500,000 a year.
Wow.
And he was 5th in yards per attempt. So like totally system quarterback, right? I don't think anyone thinks like Mullins is like super talented or anything, but sort of like, but it's easier to like build a system when you have a cheaper QB. But again, there's no precedent. We'll see. Do you think the Rams won't sign Goff to a long-term contract? Like they're going to extend him for sure. And even Trubisky with the Bears, like who's been hot and cold, like they're gonna give him $20 million a year. So yeah, I mean, people talk about that, but is there anything you wanted to talk about other than NFL? I don't know.
Let's keep talking about the NFL. I mean, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, there was some other stuff. Planet 9, maybe. You that really intrigued me what you were talking about me before we started recording.
Okay, I can. I'll say what I know off of memory while I pull it up. So I went to the planetarium in Chicago and saw they have a pass for $25 for everything, or a pass for $30 that includes these half-hour sort of. If you remember IMAX, it's kind of like an IMAX presentation with a like guy in the back who talks like this and gives you a speech along the way. So now we're going to Mars, and you see here this icy he sort of narrates it like that.
Yeah.
But it's really high quality. And now that I think about it, at the end they didn't announce some like sort of the financial connection. But so Planet 9 is a hypothetical 9th planet. So we knew Pluto used to be the 9th planet, but but as you remember, because it happened right around the social media meme era, that that Pluto was announced to no longer be a planet, and I forgot the year, but it was due to it's basically just an ice rock. There are many like it. It's less similar to our planets than it is to these other ice rocks, many of which we've found that are larger than Pluto. So we've found these other, Pluto-like structures. It's called the Kuiper Belt. It's basically an entire ring of like icy rocks. Long story short, Pluto is not a planet. It's not unique. So we eliminated Pluto. So what is Planet 9? Well, we found these objects satelliting our sun that are about as large as Pluto, but we're not calling them planets because their orbit's so far, and they're called like Senna-like objects because Senna. Senna is I believe the planet or the object that kind of killed Pluto, because we found it's like larger than Pluto, and it basically proved that Pluto is not unique or special. It's just an ice rock, and it orbits. I'm a layperson. I'm not an astrophysicist, and it orbits at a huge, massive distance. I forgot the distance, but it's like way, way more massive than Pluto. Like many, its year is like 1,000 of our years or whatever. Very, very distant orbit, but it's not on the same plane as our planets. It's not like flat like a table. It's sort of like imagine a hula hoop that's like 20 degrees off, but much larger. And there are several planets like it called Senna-like planets, and they all are super long distance, not on the same plane. And it was discovered that like they're not orbiting randomly; they're displaced in a certain direction, which they shouldn't be unless there was an object that creates gravity to displace them. So in order for the orbits, and they show a computer model of all these, and it's really cool, and they show like how it is and how it's displaced. And the way it's displaced, there has to be an object with a certain mass around this location. So they have a few estimated places, because based on the orbits are so far, there's like a wide range of where it could be, so they're looking for it. And it was this this PhD from Caltech who's looking for it in a telescope in Hawaii. So there's this theoretical ninth planet, and they're looking for it. That's what Planet 9 is. So it's a hypothetical planet based on gravity.
Why, like, why do we need? And I'm not like saying this to like degrade like the scientists or anything like that, but like what do we need to know about like if there is like this ninth planet? Like, is it just so we know like our universe, like someday we're gonna like send a satellite to this planet and out there?
It could be. I mean, it's sort of knowledge is power. I mean, it's, you know, these. I guess there is like an intrinsic value, and there could be a value that we don't see yet just based on knowing it. Like there's so many examples, like polymerase chain reaction is, you
PCR.
know, we do so much of it. It's like invaluable for DNA replication. And it's made possible because of this enzyme that's in a bacteria that exists in volcanoes. So we can use their, because it's heat labile. So because you use heat to denature the DNA and then replicate them. So you need an enzyme that can survive the heat, and it's because of this bacteria that like lives in a geyser basically. So I mean, what I'm saying is there could be value we don't even see to this planet. But it exists. I don't know. This guy got funding for it. He's in Hawaii looking through a telescope for it. So.
Speaking of DNA, so it heats up, the strands split apart, and then it's transcription and then translation, right?
Right.
If I remember that correctly.
You know, well, you're the kinesiologist, so.
But, you know, man, you're a doctor, so. I did learn a little bit of this in Bio 172, 173 at the good old University of Michigan. Speaking of science, man, I did a couple episodes, I don't know if you saw them, about cell phones and radiation from the cell phones. And I'm curious to see if you've ever looked at like peer-reviewed journals about that, because I think it's real. Like they definitely emit radiation, like just by like you can go on YouTube and search like guys holding it up to like the radiometer, I think is what it's called, and literally the radiometer start beeping. But the problem is, does that have an effect on our health? Is what like I was trying to take a look at, and from studies on mice, I mean it definitely has some effects on mice. But does that translate into like a human? I don't know. That's always the tough thing.
It could. I'll have to look into it. I mean, if a study came out and it was proven, there would have to be like a Surgeon General's warning or something like that.
Yeah. Well, in your phone, in your manual or whatever, your booklet for your phone, they do have, if you look in there, there is a warning in there that says like, hey, this has been tested to only emit like this specific bandwidth of radiation, and it does, at least in mine, it says to keep it away from like small children in it as well. And there's the FCC and this other governing body that tests cell phones. They make sure that the specific absorption rate is low, so it's to a point where it can't cause you any health concerns, but don't give it to children. Basically, is what it says. Because the effects in mice, the one study I have, it's actually up in my room, on mice that were exposed to it. I forget the parameters, but it was literally strapped to their cage for however many hours, and they found an increase in cortisol and ACTH in the mice, as well as I think what they called an increased vacuole size in the brain. I'm not exactly sure what that means. Other studies have shown like decrease in like male fertility, like decrease in sperm count, morphology of the sperm, decrease in even like testosterone in some cases, increase in reactive oxygen species, and so on and so forth. So it's interesting. I wanted to do I've been trying to do a deep dive on that on some episodes.
Yeah, that's interesting. Well, so I mean, in medicine, they really have to prove it. Like the science can be there, but they have to show that like real results. They call it like evidence-based medicine. So,
it's like the smoking example, like definitively smoking. Oh, that's my dad. Definitively smoking like causes this. That's
Right.
why there's a Surgeon General.
Right, exactly. So nowadays it's not enough to show that like, oh, the smoking causes this to happen in cells, which is like, you know, like cancerous. They have to prove that like smokers versus non-smokers like were 100 times more likely to receive cancer in a retrospective trial, or it could be a prospective trial where they study 100 people who are age matched, everything matched. Just 50 are smokers, 50 aren't, and the smokers, like, you know, 30 developed lung cancer, and of the non-smokers, 1 did. So those are the sort of trials they have to prove. So I guess, I don't know, we'll see. Like there could be a retrospective study, because cell phones have been out for what, like 20-ish years or something like that, like since everyone had them.
Yeah.
So if they do, probably what will end up happening is once people start to have cancer, they'll look back at the sort of retrospective stats for people who used cell phones or people who didn't, and see how much more likely they were to develop it.
So it's not enough to like. So do animal studies have like a basis in like that smoking example?
Yeah. So
and what you said about the cells too, that is interesting, because some of those cell phone studies I looked at were done like petri dish, like taking literally like a cell, putting it in a petri dish, exposing it to like cell phone radiation, and then they say like, oh yeah, look, like the cell calcium efflux happened and it made the cell membrane weaker, but it's like it's in a petri dish, so
right.
It's like
so I mean, generally speaking, that's kind of animals is what they do before they test it on people.
Uh-huh.
So if they're testing something, whatever, and then the mice are just dropping dead, they're not going to think it's safe to test on humans.
Uh-huh.
But then if they test and they think, okay, it's safe enough that we're not going to be doing harm to people, then they'll test it on humans. So I mean, it is used for what it's worth. I don't know. I know there's like a type of slug that has like 10 times as much DNA as humans. So
really,
or more number of genes.
Really, wow. Damn.
But yeah, for example, so marijuana smoking has not been proven to cause lung cancer, but it's only recently that it was legalized. So now they can like start studying like prospectively, and also the science is there. So the science, like, it might seem obvious that like marijuana smoke can cause lung cancer, but they can't say it causes it until they prove that it does.
Uh-huh.
So just because the science is there, like the evidence has to be there too.
That brings up, I remember watching a video, or no, excuse me, it was a article from like the 70s in Sweden that kind of brought that up about marijuana smoking and lung cancer, which I thought was really interesting because you don't really link the two like you do like regular smoking.
Right.
But I still don't. There's something. Let me see if I can pull up this video. It was a very profound, like, Indian guy talking about marijuana. Let me see. Damn it. It's going to be hard to find. Marijuana. Show up, please. Damn you. Okay, so I finally found it. It was this guy. I don't know if this is the exact same video.
In one of your uploads on YouTube, you speak of an experience where you've consumed the cobra venom, and you describe this experience as something where one part of yourself felt like you were in a state of slumber, while the other part of you felt like you were in a higher level of brightness. So how do you perceive the use of other natural intoxicants such as weed or bhang, which take you to the same level of higher consciousness, but the only difference lies in the means which are adopted in reaching that higher level of consciousness?
We talk about medical benefits when people get sick, not when they're healthy, all right? So, I'm glad you've been doing some research about finding that cobra venom thing. We are not consuming cobra venom on a daily basis, we are consuming mercury on a daily basis sometimes. But that is not for intoxication, nor do we need cobra venom for intoxication. Just look at my eyes and see, they're always stoned.
So he's basically going to talk about.
Don't put your head down, just look at me and see.
He's going to talk about like
I'm
he
always
doesn't
stoned.
he doesn't need the weed because there's like
I never touched the substance.
these cannabinoid receptors in our brain, and
Is it true that
he
this
argues
human mechanism is the most sophisticated chemical factory on the planet? Hello?
so he's
if
going to
you
say
know how
that
to manage this
they're not
well,
there for externally, they're
you can
there to like
produce what
use
you
your
want in
internal
this. Anyway,
body.
there was
So
an
it's
Israeli
very like kind of
scientist.
spiritual
You
and
might have
stuff.
heard about him because you've done so much research on this aspect. He was doing research on cannabis and its impact on the neurological system. So he started this research in the United States. Every year he was getting some 15 kilograms of cannabis. For almost 12–13 years he got this, and he produced no results. And in 1980s, when US drug agencies, the agencies which were working against the drug smuggling and stuff, they decided to not hit the suppliers but hit the market. So the street was burning with police action. At that time, the police and the agencies said, this guy is getting 13 kilograms per year. We have not as much as he wants. In about 4.5 years, he came up with this.
I skipped that a little bit.
He said, there are millions of cannabis receptors in our brain. But why?
My memory's pretty good.
So he threw this information to all kinds of scientific disciplines to find out why in human brain there are millions of cannabis receptors. Well, naturally the anthropologist said maybe at some time the whole humanity was smoking. But that's not possible because many parts of the world it doesn't exist. But even there they have. After many things, many funny things happened around the world in this context, then the neurologist came up with this and said, the brain is expecting that you will produce cannabis within the system. It's not expecting you to smoke. It's expecting you produce that so that it becomes a mood equalizer for you all the time. But most human beings have become inefficient chemical factories, or they're just lousy CEOs managing a great factory. So they start smoking from outside. It's not a moral issue. It's not a moral issue for me. But the thing is, there is substantial studies which are being put down by those few activists who want to promote it. There is substantial studies to show that your decision-making, your certain dimensions of your brain, particularly about decision-making, are sufficiently suppressed. If you smoke marijuana for 30 days, this will last for 4 to 5 years. Your decision-making is clearly affected. With that kind of mind, with that kind of a brain, if you enter the court and I'm putting my life in your hands, I don't want a cannabis-smoking lawyer for me. I don't want a cannabis-smoking surgeon to work upon me. If he's just smoking on the street corner, not doing anything to anybody, it's his problem. But
So sorry, that took a long time, but to get to that point. But yeah, man, like I was listening to that and I was thinking like, oh wow, that's like so interesting. I need to look more into that. But then again, you hear people say the same thing about alcohol, like, oh well, you can abuse alcohol, the same thing, you know. But I think there is a difference between marijuana and alcohol. Alcohol is a depressant, marijuana a psychedelic, right? Or like hallucinogen type plant. So I don't know. I don't know how you feel about that, doctor.
Well, it's definitely interesting. I guess the question is, should it be, encouraged versus criminalized? I mean, obviously, the big debate is, should people be going to jail for something that's, less harmful? Like, you can die from alcohol intoxication. You can't really die from marijuana unless a ton of it falls on your head, as the joke goes. But yeah, that's really interesting.
That's fair to say.
I guess the research isn't out yet, just because it hasn't been legal to study yet, and there are negative effects. Well, there's negative effects to eating a donut too. So.
Yeah, and maybe it's goes back to just you want to have a balance, like with the donut thing. Like one donut's fine, but if you're eating 5 donuts for like a month, that's probably not good.
Right.
Probably not good.
And trans fats are illegal in New York City, so.
Are they really?
I believe so.
Wow. Well, what is the deal with why are trans fats seen as bad? Because you see like the labels on some foods like no trans fat ever. Ah.
Right. So the trans fat has to do with, like, remember from chemistry, the bond is trans versus cis.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. But we don't have a problem with like monounsaturated fats are seen as like very good, and there's like articles I've read that say, hey, you want to eat a lot of monounsaturated fats because it shows like benefits in like weight loss or like cancer risk decreases, stuff like that. Even like saturated fat, the same thing. I've heard, I guess, arguments for and against it. Like there's people who say, hey, saturated fat is, I'd rather eat saturated fat than eat like a shitload of carbs. But then there's other people that say like, well, no, that's cholesterol and you want to decrease your cholesterol intake.
Right. I'm trying to remember from my biochem class. Um, the mech- that's interesting. It does say research is still going on, but that's for why they cause diabetes.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. Well, the evidence is saying in a cohort study that was done on nurses who consume trans fats, the relative risk, the coronary heart disease risk doubled for each 2% increase in trans fats calories consumed.
Wow.
And for each 5% increase, there was a 17% increased risk.
Wow.
So there you sort of see the evidence-based medicine versus like the science is that, evidence-based medicine is proving like this was the result from when it happened, whereas the science kind of tells you like the idea behind it, which
the
that
pathophys.
exactly.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I'm looking into that. I vaguely remember, but I'm forgetting.
So trans fat is something that's not present, in your piece of steak. Like it's something that's added to stuff, right? Because that's what you see in like chips, like chips, packaged food. So they're adding something to the food that's not present. Like if you buy something like organic or like a grass-fed beef or like eggs or anything like that.
Sorry, I'm just reading this.
Oh yeah. That is very that percentage though is pretty high. And you know what too? Like nurses, that's interesting that I wonder why they chose nurses as their like subject group.
So the trans fats in mice increased integration of cholesterol into tissue plasma membranes because they suppressed TGF beta responsiveness, which is a receptor on the endothelium of your blood vessels.
Uh-huh.
So, let's see. I'll have to look into this so I can give a better explanation on the next podcast.
Yes.
This is definitely, it's been a while since biochem. I might have it in my notes here, but anyways, I don't have it handy.
That stuff, you know what I've been really into lately is intermittent fasting, which seems like it shows a lot of promise.
That I do remember from my biochem class.
Oh,
so
really?
The reason it works is because like when you take in calories or whatever, they undergo glycolysis, right? You basically are using your enzymes, everything to break down these molecules into simple molecules which you can digest, absorb, and use.
And then like it gets uptaken in your muscles via insulin.
Right, exactly. So this is all anabolic, right? Building, taking. Well, you also have enzymes that are used for the opposite. So when you're in a fasting condition, you have enzymes that undergo gluconeogenesis, where basically you create gluconeogenesis is just Greek for making new glucose.
Yeah.
You make new glucose when you don't have it. Well, obviously, if you never fast, you never use these enzymes. So one of the theories is that it is healthy because you're using these enzymes rather than not. So even if you're using it like once a week or whatever people do, that's a heck of a lot more than people who are just never using it.
Yeah.
So that's one of the health benefits it's thought to have.
I've said this to people when I fast. So like today, for example, I got up to 17 hours from last night's dinner up until when I ate breakfast today. And I feel like whenever I eat that breakfast, like I had a shitload for breakfast. 3 eggs, hash browns, pancakes with syrup, butter. Like it was a heavy meal, and I don't feel tired. Like I don't feel like that like postprandial dip in energy after a huge meal like that. I just feel like ready to go, and I think it's because they say fasting also increases your insulin sensitivity. I think. Do you think that would have something to do with that?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
But also, speaking of evidence-based medicine, so that's your feeling, but you haven't controlled for the placebo effect. So in order to do that, you'll have to.
What would I have to do?
I guess the only way. Yeah, I don't think you could control the placebo effect, but you would definitely have to, like on multiple occasions, measure like your mood, however you could.
Do 17 hours, but do it from maybe morning to night.
Yeah, there would have
Like
to be
switch the time.
there would have to be a better. You could do that, or you could also like find out a more in-depth way to measure your mood, or maybe see how someone else interprets your mood. But yeah, because definitely like the one thing you could run into is, oh, I feel better because I'm doing it, but I already know it's healthy. So do you really feel better, or do you think it's supposed to feel better, and then it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy? But I'm
Yeah.
saying you could be right. I'm just thinking out loud because we're talking about evidence-based medicine. The theory can be right, but we have to measure, is it working?
Yeah. Okay. But I feel like with the placebo, like why, like if it's, who cares if it's placebo or if it's really happening? If you feel good, you feel, right?
Well then it could be anything. Then why would it be intermittent fasting? Why not just say you have to drink like 16 ounces of water an hour and it does this, and then people will feel that.
Hey, I mean, yeah, I guess. Yeah. I guess that's a good point.
It's sort of like this smart water, the high pH. It feels healthier, right? So you can charge more for it.
Are you into the high pH waters?
I'm not. My mother is.
Yeah.
And I just drink the bottled water we have at home. No.
Yeah.
The idea is that the sort of Tom Brady diet that you balance acid
high
and bases.
alkaline. Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of been debunked. I mean, it never was. Just it's like pseudoscience.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like folk medicine-y, but it's not true. Like your stomach is a pH of 2.
Yeah.
And it's a logarithmic scale. So for every 1, it's 100-fold increase in acid. So like, what difference is a water that's 9 versus 7.5? That's like 1,000 times less than the difference between 2 and 7, right? Because it's a logarithmic scale. So that difference is so minuscule. Like, and it's getting neutralized anyway. But where it could have a benefit is on your like esophagus, mouth. Like if you have a lot of spicy foods, it could, but it'd probably be healthy in like hot substances. Like the biggest risk factors for like esophageal cancer is smoking and alcohol. So obviously like reducing that would be much healthier, reducing spicy or hot foods. But other than that, like the only benefit would be like before it gets to your stomach, that high pH water could have. Well, other than that, it's not. Again, it's not. Other than that, it's just placebo effect. But there could be benefits. But no, I'm not. I mean, it's not significant enough to be worth the money.
Yeah.
Like all these drugs that lower your, you see them on TV all the time. I'm sure you see like Januvia, Jardiance. You see all these.
Yeah.
I'm sure anything you watch during the daytime will have a diabetes medicine advertisement.
Yes. Yeah.
And it lowers your hemoglobin A1C by what, 0.5 or 1, but it's $1,000 a month. So it's like, wow, what is the benefit, per dollar? Isn't that great?
For some people, 0.5 or 1 is like going from like really bad to like just bad.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I mean, you'll see diabetic patients who are having A1C of like 14,
Really?
and the goal is less than 7. So like that drug, like
Wow.
they'll be on a bunch of these drugs, and
Like metformin?
yeah, well, metformin is like everyone has to be on it. It decreases hepatic gluconeogenesis, so it
So your body doesn't produce its own.
right, exactly. So everyone's on metformin. That's one that, and it's cheap, so it's 100. But so everyone's on metformin,
Mhm.
but it's the other ones, these new fandangled drugs,
Yeah.
that the benefit isn't as high
Wow.
per dollar.
Yeah.
So it's really interesting. Oh, there's go. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say, like, when a person's that bad, or let's say they're not even like that bad. Let's say they're, you know, like 7.5 or 8 A1C. Do you think like fasting and doing that would it be more beneficial than just taking meds and doing that?
Yeah. Oh, yes. I do, but at the same time, like
Or is that dangerous?
well,
for,
I mean, diet and exercise would be curative of diabetes. So, I mean, part of the problem is like these people aren't adherent to the diet. They're not adherent to exercise. They're not doing it. So, it's like, yes, if they became marathon runners, it would
Uh-huh.
cure their diabetes, but they're not doing it. These are people who have a very sedentary lifestyle.
Uh-huh.
So it would work, but
Yeah.
I mean, it should be if you think about like all the medical costs of people going blind from diabetes, people losing limbs from diabetes.
Really?
Um,
How does that even happen? Is it like it affects, like, the sugars affect your nervous system?
right. So, so your nerves get like glycosylated. Like they take in the sugar draws in water, and there's damage to the nerves. And the way by which it makes you blind is glucose gets changed to sorbitol, and the only place where there is not an enzyme that degrades it, one of them is in your eyes. So there's osmotic damage. Basically, the glucose, like the sorbitol, draws into water. And it gets damaged via osmotics. I
Uh-huh.
guess.
Is that the same thing why they say like people should regulate their salt intake then? Like sodium?
So the reason for that is because basically, like, yeah, salt draws in water. It basically causes hypertension directly,
Mm-hmm. Okay.
and that's they call it the silent killer, because a lot of people, you don't know you have high blood pressure, but your heart knows, and so the higher your blood pressure is, your heart is pumping against like a tighter hose almost, and it's called the remodeling in your heart, where basically your heart is a muscle. It's pumping against a tighter hose. It becomes bigger and stronger. That's not a good thing, though, because
Right.
it has higher oxygen demands.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, your coronary blood vessels are getting like atherosclerosis. So like they're not getting bigger with age. They're getting tighter. And so what happens when your heart muscle has a higher demand and it doesn't get enough blood? That's when you get an MI and you die.
Uh-huh.
Where your heart muscle, your myocardium, your heart muscle isn't getting enough. I forgot your kinase major, so
Yeah.
your
Yeah.
myocardium isn't getting enough oxygen,
Uh-huh.
and what happens when things don't get enough oxygen? They die.
Right.
Why?
Yeah.
Because oxygen is the terminal acceptor in the electron transport chain.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so why is it when there's no oxygen we die? Oh, you don't have oxygen, you need it to breathe. It's because your cells can't make energy.
Uh-huh.
So your cells aren't making energy. They have no way to feed themselves. That's how they die, basically. So
Yeah.
your myocardium is dying just because you have that high blood pressure. So that's why like salt, like, and everyone has high blood pressure. Like so many people do. Very, very common. So
Which
you
is like over 140? Is that like the standard or the guideline?
So now it's based on age. So age greater than 60, your blood pressure should be less than 140 over 90.
Uh-huh.
But until age 60, it's less than 130 over 80,
Okay.
or 130 over 90.
Wow.
Less than 130 over 180,
Yeah.
yeah. So, which is more strict than it used to be,
Uh-huh.
but more lenient for older people. But yeah, that's why sodium is pretty, and there's salt in a lot of foods.
Oh yeah, yeah. That's why we went on the sea salt kick. Everything's sea salt now.
Right. Which, I mean, if the taste isn't that much different, then it's
Yeah.
probably worth it.
But there's not as much. There's no iodine in the sea salt. Which, did you know that when they say there's a direct correlation between when the U.S. started mandating iodine be put in table salt, and then like a 3-time increase in IQs. This was like pre-World War II, I think. And the vitamin I take actually has iodine in it. But you can also get iodine from seafood and I believe like red meat even has some iodine in it. And they say milk does too.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
There's a somewhat related topic. NBC News had a story about this young man who had a rare muscular dystrophy, and it was cured by it. Like this off-label drug kind of like miraculously cures it, and he was getting it for free because it was off-label. Well, the government created this program, and they only have one line about this, but it's kind of important. The government created a program to encourage rare disease drug development, because it's not in the drug company's interest to develop drugs for rare diseases, right? Because it's rare. Like, we're not going to make money off it. So they created a program to encourage creating drugs for rare diseases, and the company took up this drug, slightly changed it, and got FDA approved, and so now this drug is $50,000 a year.
Wow. That's some like Martin Shkreli shit right there.
It is, but they wouldn't have done it if not for this program, right?
Yeah.
So it's kind of like both. Obviously, the NBC News sort of framed it as pharmaceutical companies are evil in the story. But they had one line in there, there's a government program to encourage drugs for rare diseases. But I thought that was right up your alley.
Yeah, it is. That sounds like a Lorenzo's oil 2.0. Wasn't Lorenzo's oil just olive oil? No. I'm gonna eat and like. No, that was my mom for all you listeners out there. We've got a feast. We've got chicken. Oh, did you want to stay for dinner?
No, I can get going whenever. I didn't even realize the time. Time flies when you're having fun.
Yeah, it's almost been 2 hours. Oh, okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Mom. Everybody, like, if you listen to this, you'll hear like shuffling in the background just because it can pick up the background noise. People will probably think like, oh, that must be their research team like shuffling papers. Nah, it was just my mom making dinner.
Let's see. Okay, what? I'm trying to think of the science topics we talked about that I have to look up so I can give like a detailed. So
marijuana.
I actually did a project in year 1 or year 2, which I can look up what I have for that. The long story short is there is a mechanism by which marijuana causes adenocarcinoma of the lung. However, it has not been proven by trials. So it could be so small it doesn't matter, or it could be large where they're going to say smoking marijuana is injurious to lung cancer. So but I will look that up. But also the mechanism by which trans fats
Yeah,
is basically harmful, because it's actually more complicated than I initially thought. And then I feel like there was something else.
the fasting thing.
Oh yeah, intermittent fasting, definitely, because there's definitely a longer explanation for that.
So why would your body undergoes gluconeogenesis, but then what role then do ketones play? Because doesn't your body start burning, like the fat that your body has turns into ketones that start circulating in your blood as well?
Right, and ketones can be used for gluconeogenesis.
Oh, okay.
Or lipogenesis. Basically, um, they're like an end product to like digestion of fats, but by fasting you can sort of reverse that and get them used up and removed basically. So
Yeah.
that's kind of like and also like obviously the American diet, like on average we eat too much.
Yeah.
Right. I mean,
Yeah.
so intermittent fasting definitely is beneficial. A lot of cultures do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's like there is science behind why it is beneficial. And one of the big things is it's thought to be healthy to like sort of use those enzymes. It's almost like a cleanse in and of itself.
Yeah.
You hear about all these cleanse fat diets, and it's kind of like fasting does it by itself.
Did you ever hear Dr. Rhonda Patrick on Joe Rogan's show? She was talking about intermittent fasting, and she was saying that at a certain point your body starts to like, there starts to be like cell autophagy, and your body like basically has that programmed cell death and gets rid of like what she said senescent cells, which I don't know what that means. I don't know what a senescent cell is.
So I'm not familiar with her. I'll ask my brother because I know he's So senescence is just Latin for old, like senile. But Rhonda Patrick.
Damn, that Latin degree is coming in handy for you.
Yeah, so so much is Greek, and unfortunately, I kind of like phoned in Greek and just got it as a minor language, even though I don't actually know it. I just know the alphabet, not the vocab, and the grammar. But it's interesting. So I got asked on the interview trail for med school multiple times, what was the last book you read? And I'm glad I have a great answer.
That book right over there.
Yeah.
Actually, that wasn't out probably.
If I would recommend not going with that one just because.
Oh, okay.
Just because.
Yeah. I know what you're saying.
Because like you're trying to get hired. It'd be different if you're already hired, but
yeah.
No,
I know
you just never know who could have an axe to grind or who has heard about Jordan Peterson and hasn't
12 Rules for Life
and hasn't actually like read it, because a lot of people form their opinions based on like hearsay and not so much
1 minute video clips.
Yeah. And anyways,
yes,
but yeah, I'm glad the last book I read was a nonfiction book called Carthage Must Be Destroyed, and long story short, like Greek comes from Phoenician, which comes from Hebrew, so that's pretty interesting. But yeah, there's so much like classics is really interesting, and there's a lot of medical terminology comes from Greek or Latin, basically.
Hebrew is older than Greek?
Yes.
But is there a language that's older than Hebrew?
Ooh, I'm not sure. Sanskrit maybe. So there is you may have heard of Indo-European. It's kind of self-explanatory, right? So if you can believe it, Cyrillic has a common ancestor language with English, with Hindi. Okay. So there are, basically the Asian languages are completely unique, completely different. Might be obvious, but like there are many languages. Like most of the Indo-European languages do have a common ancestor language. It's it comes from a language that's like a code, linear B. It's really interesting. But yeah, we're not so different after all. And you see how much, even since we've been alive, how much it seems like our language has evolved. So you can see over hundreds of years or thousands of years how a language can evolve.
Yeah. Oh yeah, like back in the day they would say a certain thing, and then today we say like, oh, he boosted.
Yep, exactly. Or, their efforts in France to preserve their language. Like, most Americans don't speak proper grammar.
No.
Like,
Yeah, I don't.
for example, in my Latin class, I had this brilliant professor who now teaches at Harvard, I believe. And, he studied biochemistry and classics, but he decided to go into classics, taught himself English through Latin. So a lot of times he would say words that like kind of made sense, but he was kind of making them up. But English is like the longer vocab in English is from Latin. So it's like it's like 60-40 German and Latin. Like the shorter words are all German. But he said he asked the room, like, what is a predicate? Silence. And then he said, like, to one guy, like, read, what is a predicate? I don't know. He said a predicate is the part of the sentence that is not the subject. That is taught in second grade in Italy, and here it's just not taught. Like, people don't know grammar.
Right.
You'll hear people ending sentences with a preposition all the time.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know which one I would go with. Like that's improper.
Yeah.
So I don't know if it's like degenerating, but like there's definitely an evolution, right? Things are changing. Like so much of English, so many of our idioms come from when we were a farm society, right? Like, you can do that till the cows come home or something. It's like, what do most people like? So that phrase will just die and new
Needle
ones
in a haystack.
yeah. So
Yeah.
we could go on. Like so much is from farm culture.
Yeah.
Like
A bird in the hand worth two in the bush. Yeah.
yeah, like so many idioms. I'm trying to think of more. You're beating me as far
if you can skin a buck, you can ride a truck. What's another one? You sow what you reap, or you
Yep.
reap what you sow. Farm idioms in my search engine.
Oh, don't have a cow.
Yeah.
Take the bull by the horns.
Bring home the bacon.
Wow.
Beef up. Don't be a chicken.
Yeah, exactly. Or
Yeah.
that's BS.
Don't put all your eggs in one basket. I never realized that. Yeah. Yeah.
And so I guess it's almost inevitable that now that we're not mostly a farm culture, to that language will evolve. So
Mostly a digital culture, would you say?
well, not yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
People will say LOL out loud.
I can't believe Richard Dawkins foresaw this. Like he foresaw memes in that, because you read The Selfish Gene, right?
I haven't. I have been meaning to. I need to. It's when you have to do like a signed reading for.
Yeah.
It's a lot more
Yeah.
annoying, but
I'll tell you what, I'm only 60 pages into that book, 12 Rules of Life, and I like it a lot. It's funny what you were saying earlier about like the diabetic drugs. Like, sure, you can prescribe it to people, but people just don't take them. And he actually was talking about that. Rule number 2 is treat yourself like you're somebody that you're responsible for helping. Bless you. And he was saying in the chapter, people are more likely to like give everything to like one of their pets, like take care of them, take them to the vet, make sure they're eating healthy. And yet if you look at some of these people, they themselves are like all like out of shape, like have all kinds of problems. And he was kind of going through the chapter, like, why this happens. And he uses a lot of biblical references too. He's talking about Genesis. I think basically what he was getting at was that we think of ourselves as like for some reason, like we're not worthy of having like good things happen to us. So we want to kind of like help other people because we see. I think what he was saying, we see the good in other people, but it's just harder for us to see it in ourselves. And he was using like the story of Adam and Eve to like weave into it. It was really interesting.
This kind of brings up the great Novak Djokovic.
Oh.
I was watching. He won the Australian Open. He's won 3 Grand Slams in a row. And last year, he fell off. He had like he had some sort of minor injury, or maybe it was a major injury. But he didn't win. It looked like he was done. He without having the stats in front of me, he didn't win anything. Didn't do anything. His ranking fell a lot, and that was 2 years ago. Now he won Wimbledon, the U.S. Open, and now Australian Open. 3 in a row. Incredible. Like amongst the best he's played in his career. And after the Australian Open, they said, "It's even Novak. Like 2 years ago, you had fallen off, like down in the dumps. Like, can you ever believe that you would be sitting here having won 3 Grand Slams in a row?" He said, "Yes." I was blown away. He said, "Yes, because I believe a lot in visualization of success, and I believe you have to be your own biggest fan." Like I was like blown away. That's like one of the best like post game interviews.
Yeah.
And here he's usually kind of a goofy, happy go lucky guy, but the fact that he just like obviously like they were expecting him to say, "No, wow, it's been amazing," but he was just like, "Yes."
Yeah.
I can't like that was incredible. Like, and he said you have to be your own biggest fan. It's inspirational.
I like that a lot. Dude, he was probably reading this Jordan Peterson.
Maybe.
Do you listen to JP?
I've
like podcasts.
I haven't, just because I don't know. I've been busy, and just now that I finally have a week off, I've been like watching like one episode of every TV show someone's been recommending to me, but I should. It is important because I definitely it's very easy to see the negative, like, oh, I'm a med student, oh, but I'm a Caribbean med student, that's like, so often like in our school we sort of fight with that, like everyone does, and some people don't even take it so seriously just because of that reason. So it's or in any industry, oh, I'm not the CEO or whatever. So
yeah.
So I'll definitely get into it. He's Canadian from the great land of
Canadian. Quebec. Or no, he's from Toronto. Or actually, he teaches in Toronto. But I don't know where he's from.
That's interesting. Canada does not have free speech in the same way the USA does. Like it is. It's like it is a crime to deny the Holocaust. Like you can go to jail for. I don't know if you stand in the town square and just say, it didn't happen. I mean, obviously it did happen. I'm not saying that isn't wrong. It's just, there is something in between that and what is true that's like shouldn't be a crime that would be, or but yeah, Canada does not have free speech in the same way we do. So I wouldn't be surprised if he ran into some controversy there.
Oh yeah.
I'm sure he does.
Yeah, he did. With some sort of bill they passed. Like the first time I ever heard of him was from a YouTube video where kind of like these gang of kids like circled around him and were like, it was about like transgender something. And they were kind of harassing him. I might be doctoring on that.
Oh, that's right. In Canada, it's a crime to misgender someone.
Yeah. Yes.
Which I can understand. Like, to be fair, I can understand that would be very harmful. It'd be very mean. It'd be basically like insulting someone to their face, and they're trying to avoid that. But at the same time, a lot of times it's not obvious. And basically, I guess what you have to do now with that law to be safe is just probably do that thing where you just don't call someone anything. So.
Yeah. I think this was the original video.
Peterson, do you have any comments on the Nazi presence protest? The presence of Nazis and white supremacists assaulting people at your protest. Do you have any comment on that?
Yeah, I don't like Nazis.
Then why
were they here? Well, how can I answer
are there views in alignment with yours?
At some point you have to realize.
That's a foolish question. Look, If you want to know what my views are,
I've watched all of your videos, yes.
including
Yes, I have.
then why would you ask such a question?
Because this is my interpretation of your videos.
Apparently, I wanted
All of the people who arranged the protest against you watched all of your videos.
It's like, do you want to disavow 150 videos on YouTube?
No, your lectures, which sparked the debate.
Okay. I have 150. Could you let me talk to her for a moment?
Don't call me that, please.
So, I have 150 lectures on YouTube.
And it's kind of a long video, but yeah.
Yeah, so much of these sort of controversies comes from who kind of gets the benefit of the doubt, or who gets the narrative like frames from their perspective.
Framing's big.
Yeah, exactly, and context and everything. Yeah, a lot of it comes down to the least common denominator, or whatever is the most sensational. I don't know. This sort of new age media has kind of become this.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Anyways.
This might be a good time to end.
Yeah, well,
2 hours.
Wow, is that longer than your average podcast?
Yes.
Time flew. I didn't realize until like 20 minutes ago. Okay.
We talked about a lot of good stuff.
Yeah. Wow, we didn't get it. I thought we'd get into non-NFL sports, but
Oh, like basketball.
Novak is tennis.
Oh yeah. Tennis.
Oh yeah, the Anthony Davis thing. I guess that can be the next one because he's going to be a Pelican for 6 months. So.
Yeah. And they'll get bounced from the playoffs if they even make it.
No, I don't think they'll make it. They're playing him like low minutes to make sure he gets like the most value from the trade this summer. Yeah, that's a really interesting one. I guess. Yeah, the thing with the NBA is like no one cares that like the Bucks are in first place, right? It's sort of.
Are they really? Wow.
Yeah,
I didn't even realize
Yeah,
that.
they've been the best team this year, but it's like, is anyone going to beat the Warriors in a 7-game series? I guess that's the beauty of single elimination, is you get that variance, but in a best-of-7 series, the best team will, on average, win, right?
Yeah.
And baseball season's starting, and Bryce Harper and Manny Machado are still unsigned.
Oh.
So there's a conspiracy in baseball it's kind of like it's kind of like a debate, like, okay, is it collusion from the owners who are not signing like two of the 10 or 15 most talented players in the game are free agents?
Mm-hmm.
And is it collusion that the owners aren't paying people, or are GMs finally being smart and not signing bad contracts? And it's not that big a deal that a baseball player isn't signed a month before opening day or whatever, because it's an individual sport basically. So that's kind of. But anyways, we can talk about that next time.
Like by the next time we talk, like you watch, like one of those guys will get signed like tomorrow.
Yeah,
it'll just be like the ironic thing.
Yeah, or they could not. I mean, with baseball, it's kind of like, it's so much more of a regional sport, and if the Tigers aren't good, it's like, it's not super interesting. Well, there is some exciting young players though. Vladimir Guerrero Jr. and Ronald Acuna. Mm-hmm. So, anyways,
Nick Castellanos.
Yeah, yeah, he is. All right, shall we? Until next time.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
I hope I brought some information.
You did. This was great. Yeah, Michael Meehan. Do you want to plug anything, Mike?
No, I wish. How can I?
Your practice.
Can I plug your podcast?
Sure. Yeah. This is the thread. Yeah. And yeah, we'll sign out. Till next time.
All right. Thanks.
God bless.